Tonight's homework is Chapter 7, Lesson 8. The directions say, circle every name that describes the figure. So we might circle only one, we might circle more than one, we might even circle all four. So number 1 is looking at this shape here. And we need to decide, is it a quadrilateral, is it a parallelogram, is it a rectangle, or a trapezoid? So quadrilateral, I'm going to under that word quad in there because quad means 4. So quadrilateral is a figure that has 4 sides. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 sides in this shape. So is it quadrilateral? The answer is yes. A parallelogram. Remember, a parallelogram is a shape that has opposite sides. So the left and the right are parallel, which means they'll never ever cross. And the top and the bottom are parallel, which means they're never ever going to cross. And the left and the right are the same length, and the top and the bottom are the same length. They do not all need to be the same length, but the opposite sides need to be the same length and parallel. So if we look here, is the left and the right parallel? That means they're never ever going to cross. And if I line up my pens here, they are going to cross, which automatically means it is not a parallelogram. Now we need to ask ourselves, is it a rectangle? Now a rectangle has opposite sides that are parallel, opposite sides that are equal, and 4 right angles. This does not have opposite sides that are parallel or opposite sides that are equal, so it is not a rectangle. A trapezoid has 1 pair of parallel sides, which means the top and the bottom is parallel, or the left and the right are parallel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double check. Is the top and the right parallel? They're never ever going to cross. And we checked the left and the right, and we found out that those would cross. But a trapezoid only needs 1 pair of parallel sides. The top and the bottom makes 1 pair. So in this case, a trapezoid is a correct name for this shape. Number 2, is this a quadrilateral? Does it have 4 sides? 1, 2, 3, 4. It does have 4 sides. Are opposite sides parallel and equal? So I'm going to measure. Are opposite sides parallel? Never ever going to touch? Those 2 are. Let's check the other sides. Are these parallel? Never ever going to touch? Those are parallel. So we know that this is a parallelogram. Is it a rectangle? Now remember, a rectangle is opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are equal, and 4 right angles. So if I go ahead and slide a corner of my sticky note in here, you'll see that the sticky note fits exactly in the corner. So that tells me that that is a right angle. I can see that this one is a right angle, so that's 2 right angles, 3 right angles, and 4 right angles. So even though this doesn't look like a rectangle that we're used to like this, it is a rectangle. And is this a square? Opposite sides are parallel. Opposite sides are equal. There's 4 right angles. We can even draw in the right angle symbols here. And the last thing that makes a square very special is that all 4 sides are exactly the same length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure using the corner to see if this side is the same length as this side, which is the same length as this side, and the same length as this side. Now remember, in class we might have done like this to show that all 4 sides are exactly the same. So this one is also a square. Remember, a square can be a rectangle. A rectangle cannot be a square. All right, last one. Quadrilateral. Does this have 4 sides? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, this one is a quadrilateral. Is it a parallelogram? Are opposite sides parallel and equal? parallel? Yes. And are these sides parallel? Yes. Now is the top the same length as the bottom? Yes. And is the left the same as the right? Yes. Now notice that I made this and this with 2 tick marks and the top and the bottom with 1, because if I were to use 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark, that means it's like a square and all 4 sides are exactly the same. So it is a parallelogram. Now, a rectangle and a square, both of them need 4 right angles. So I'm going to use the corner of my sticky note and slide it up into the corner on my shape. Does it fit perfectly? Nope, because there's some extra hanging out on this side. And if I slide this way, this angle hides behind here. It's too small. And this one, too big. It doesn't fit perfectly. And this one, too small. So it is not a rectangle. And if it's not a rectangle, it can't be a square either, because both of them need 4 right angles. All right, next one has more than one correct answer. So your shapes might look a little bit different than mine, and that's okay. So number 4, we need to draw a quadrilateral that is not a square, which means all sides cannot be the same length. So if I ask myself something with 4 sides and different lengths of sides, all 4 cannot be the same. So I might draw a rectangle. A rectangle cannot be a square because it does not have all sides that are equal. So what I did is I made this a long, skinny rectangle. All 4 sides are not the same. This side is the same as this side, and this side is the same as this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the number 4 in here so I know that this is my shape for number 4. Number 5 says draw a parallelogram that is not a square. So a parallelogram, opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are equal. What I'm going to do is I am going to draw a shape that looks like a rhombus, but it's not a rhombus. I'm going to do 3 up here, so I'm going to make my dots here. So I have 3 boxes on top. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and go over to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go over to the side. Now, it's probably a good idea to use a ruler so your lines are nice and straight. My lines are not nice and straight. I should have used a ruler. All right, so this side is the same length as this side. This side is the same length as this side. And if I use my rulers, or excuse me, if I use my pens, I can double check that my sides are parallel, which means they're never going to cross. So those 2 will never ever cross. And those 2 will never ever cross. And because this is my shape for number 5, I'm going to put a 5 inside. The last one asks us to explain why it is not possible to draw a square that is not a parallelogram. So what they're saying to you is that if you draw a square, it is automatically a parallelogram, and we need to explain why. So, in order for something to be a parallelogram, it needs 2 pairs of parallel sides. So a parallelogram has 2 pairs of parallel sides and so does a square. So, parallelogram, opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are equal, and in the case of a square has opposite sides that are parallel and opposite sides that are equal. So a square is always a parallelogram. However, just like we saw here, parallelograms are not always a square.